This video is going to be my non-spoiler review for Thor Love and Thunder, so if you watch this video, you do not have to worry about anything spoiling the movie in this video. But if you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content. Again, this is going to be my non-spoiler review for Thor Love and Thunder. So I'm going to be honest from the beginning. I did enjoy this movie overall. I really did. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was fun. But there were a lot of aspects that didn't land like how I had hoped that they would, especially with the Gorr the God Butcher storyline. Not in relation to like it being comic book accurate or anything, not like that. I was just hoping the overall movie was going to be better because Gorr the God Butcher was the villain, and I really did enjoy that story in the comics. But with that being said as well, just talking about Gorr, Christian Bale was fantastic in Gorr the God Butcher. Like him as a villain, he was just phenomenal. He's easily one of the best villains in the MCU. I still wouldn't say he is the best, but he is definitely up there as one of the best portrayals for a villain in the MCU now. But the beginning of this movie felt really rushed, and as if there was no direction as to where they were going to take the movie next. And it wasn't until about halfway through the movie that the pacing kind of evened itself out, in my opinion, and felt fine, like a normal movie again. And I should also say I did feel the same way when I originally watched Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man No Way Home. But the difference is that I like those movies a lot. Like I think they're some of the best movies in the MCU period. But with Thor Love and Thunder, I felt like the rushiness and the non-cohesiveness of the beginning of the movie, it did a disservice to the overall film. Like, the film didn't stick the landing like No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness did, in my opinion. And it just didn't, it did very, I don't want to say it did bad for the movie, but it did not help the movie in that regard at all. With that being said, the rest of the story I thought was very good and it was pretty funny. So this movie was a very fun family film that you could laugh at, and you could see cool stuff happen. As far as its cohesiveness with the future of the MCU goes, there wasn't really a whole lot there for that either, although there hasn't been too much of that in the Phase 4 films so far, besides maybe you could make the argument of Multiverse of Madness if you have comic book knowledge beforehand. There were definitely some things introduced into the universe in this movie that were long overdue, in my opinion, but there wasn't a direction to where the MCU is continuing to go overall from this movie. And to be clear on that as well, each movie of the MCU doesn't need to be a huge connected piece of the puzzle. It really doesn't. But in my opinion, this movie wasn't good enough to do super well without being hyper connected to the future of the MCU. And since it wasn't that, as a standalone movie, it doesn't land as much as one would hope it would, at least for me personally. It's honestly hard when it comes to non-spoiler reviews. It's always hard for me to talk about anything else about the movie without getting into spoilers, and obviously I'm not going to do that. But overall, I do give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. I do not think it is a bad movie. I really don't. I just think the beginning of the movie, probably about the first half, did a disservice to the rest of the movie. And I will say, not all of the first half of the movie is even bad. Like the very beginning of the movie, I would say probably the first 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, I really enjoyed a lot. But there's just a certain point in the story, which obviously I'm not going to say, there's just a certain point in the beginning where it starts to feel rushed and it starts to kind of lack a direction, in my opinion, as to how they're going to go from point A to point B next. And because of that, it just kind of felt all jumbled together up until the halfway point of the movie for me. So like I said, I give the movie a 7.5 out of 10, and if you're curious of how the tone of it goes, it is very similar to Ragnarok, although it does have kind of the spin of it being a romantic comedy. So it is kind of a fun romantic comedy movie with a nice bit of action sequences going into that. Thor was very good in this movie, just like always. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and then Natalie Portman as Jane Foster's the Mighty Thor was also fantastic in this movie. So she was really good, and she got her just dues as a character in this movie. So that it was really good. But I will say, at least maybe temper your expectations and just go into seeing this movie and expecting it to just be a fun thing to watch, and maybe not something that maybe progresses the MCU forward in a whole lot more ways, because it really doesn't. It is kind of just a standalone fun MCU movie. The way I kind of think of it and to me, this wasn't even really an MCU movie like it was, but this was more kind of just watching an event that took place in the MCU. That's kind of how it felt after watching it immediately the first time. But like I said, I'm really not trying to say it's bad, because I don't think it's bad. But I guess the word I would say is I'm disappointed, because I wanted it to be better. But overall, like I said, 7.5 out of 10. If you enjoyed this video today, feel free to like and subscribe for future Marvel content, and I appreciate you for watching the video.